Hey, I hope you guys are doing alright. I'm doing much better this week. So in this video, I'm going to paint something similar to last week's painting. It is inspired by my art challenge video. So I'll try to paint this scene with more elaboration, and I'll try to find out how Gimp works in terms of detail painting and how brushes works. So let's start. Okay, so I'm using usual canvas size 1920 by 1080. Now I'm going to paint using a tablet, so the brush features are important here. Now here under dynamics there are various options that will help you decide what kind of brush pressure and brush style you want, or you can make a custom one of your own. To do that, you just have to click down here in this blue button and then paint dynamics. This pop-up opens. Here you can see this icon. It lets you create a new paint dynamics. Once you have created the brush, you can edit it from here, this button beside it. Now I'm filling the background with a medium bright yellow color using the bucket tool. Now making a new layer on top of it and taking a bright green, little on the darker side, and start painting some leaves. Right now I don't need any special brush feature, so I'm keeping dynamics off and keep on painting. At this stage you may try to use some reference images if you like, if you are having trouble to paint the environment from a certain perspective. So I'm just going to make this leaf a bit bendy, bent over, just to give a bit variety. Essentially I'm just making a frame, outer frame. This is the first layer or the closest layer to the viewer. So now I'm just filling the outline with the color. Now since this leaf is a little bent over and we can see the inside or the below side of the leaf, I'm just coloring it with a little lighter color. That's how leaves color differ from outside to inside. So here I've just painted all the leaves with the singular color. Now I'm using the custom brush that I made. You can make one too. It's not that difficult. Maybe I can make a different video about it. There's different option there. I'm just using trial and error method. Here I'm using the hardness 50 brush. Anyways, so in this stage the color combination is important. So on top of the basic green, I'm creating the veins of the leaf with a darker green. It will give a nice shade on the leaf. Also, it will look prominent on it. Now I increase the aspect ratio of the brush, so it changed its shape and giving me a textured look while I'm brushing on this side. While brushing with changed aspect ratio and angle, you have to check which angle and aspect ratio combination is best for giving you your desired texture. Here I'm just using one kind of aspect ratio while shading, but when I'm changing direction, I might change the aspect ratio. And while shading, I'm not only shading the inside of the leaf but also both sides, which gives the leaf a bit color dynamics. Now I just took even darker color to give depth in the texture of the leaf. Now I took a light green color. It will give the leaf its shine, which will give an idea that there's a bit of shiny or oily texture on top of the leaf, which also makes it look nice and smooth. Now giving a bit more shade with changed aspect ratio and opacity. Now while painting these leaves, you have to interchange between opacity, aspect ratio, angle, etc. to get a more painted look. Okay, now I'm taking a light yellow color and shading on the side as if the sun rays are falling on the leaf. So I change the opacity and aspect ratio again to paint. It totally depends on how much intensity you want. Here I have kept aspect ratio 0, angle 0 to create the basic sense of the light on leaf. Now took the smudge tool and smudging the sides, the edges of the light to give it a more soft look, because when I used the brush it looked like it's out of the place and just with a sudden end of the edge. So this smudge look gives it a more softer, more integrated look, like it's part of the image or part of the leaf. Now I'm using the smudge tool to blend the rest of the color. Instead of using my general blending method, I'm just trying smudge tool and see how it comes out, and it's pretty much giving me a satisfactory result. Now I'm using a little light green around the yellow to give it a shade and a bit of depth, as if the green of the leaf has some kind of reflection of light around it, giving some cosmetic touches on the leaf so that all the colors blends really well with each other. Since this is my first time working elaborately on GIMP, I'm just trying different method to fit in to make it look better. Now I'm taking a very light yellow color and just lightly brushing over the previous yellow color to give extra shine or light in certain places, which will give a difference of light density in different part of the leaf. It will look better. It's already giving a shiny look, as if the light is falling through other leaves on this particular leaf. Now I'll carry on like this with other leaves as well. So I'm not going to show each and individual leaf to make you bore. Now before I go on to smudge and add light to other leaves, I have to mention some points. Here I added an extra layer and selected all the colors that I'm going to use on the leaves as a color palette. In GIMP, I noticed that you have to pick the color with the eyedropper tool from the layer on which the colors are given. If you are on another active layer, you cannot take that color as a sample. Now I'm going to mention again few of the aspects or the characteristics of the brush, such as brush opacity. You have to change the opacity according to your need and to give different depth of color. I'm using hardness 50 brush here. Of course, the size has to be changed accordingly. Now aspect ratio and angle are two different and important options that I'm using here to give different angular color and different kind of shades. Now I have done painting the frontmost or the topmost layer. I created a new layer below it and taking a little lighter green color to paint. This base green color should be lighter than the base green color of the first layer, because this layer is little farther away from the first layer, so automatically it will be little lesser in color, as we know that atmosphere can give you different color contrast depending on the distance. So I'm just painting another set of leaves to create the second layer. Now I've painted some flowers in a separate layer just to give it a bit contrast and make it a bit more interesting. I'm just filling up the gaps that I've made with the leaves, because if I want to animate the scene, I might be needing the parts which are not visible now, but when I'll zoom in the camera they might get visible, so I have to make sure those parts are painted as well. Now just like before, I'm detailing these leaves, but the difference is, even though I'm using darker color on these leaves, these dark colors must be lesser than the darker colors that I've used in the first layer. Just compare the two and make sure the overall look of the second layer is a bit dampened or less bright compared to the first layer. Now I'm just smudging as I'm drawing. These layers do not have to have a lot of detailing like the first layer, but still I need some form of detailing in these layers, because when I will animate it, I'll be needing some bits of detailing in these layers. But as I'll go farther, as I'll paint layers that are further away from our view, the detailing will be lesser. Now shading the leaf just like before, there's no difference except for the color. Smudging the leaves after giving shades. Now while smudging, you can change its strength from the left side below. You can see here there's an option called red. You can increase or decrease the strength of your smudge tool depending on your requirement. Now adding some yellow dots just to make it look like lights falling on the leaf. Okay, now after leaves are done on this layer, I'll shade the flowers. I've made the flowers on a different layer, but I'll merge them together later on. I'll just use the same technique here, and I'll use the smudge tool to blend it. In Gimp, I think the smudge tool works really nice, but I'll try to use the traditional blending techniques later on in some painting. And finally, a little bit of sunlight on the flowers will look good, a bit dazzling, shiny. Now finally merge both the layers down. Now on to the next layer, which is below these two layers. So again take the color and paint just like before, and this time the color will be lighter than previous two layers. Now making the bottommost layer, on this layer I'm going to take a little bluish color because it will give a little bit difference, will break the monotonicity. Also the further green colored objects are, the bluer they look, though it works best for mountains, etc. So yeah, it looks pretty good. And since I'm going to animate it probably or not, the bottom line is the painting style I'm following is a bit kind of animation, old 2D animation we used to see. Not exactly like that, but I'm trying to follow the idea here. So that's why I'm giving vibrant colors and this kind of combination of green, blue, yellow for the garden, and using vibrant colors on flowers as well. Not that I'm saying that in realistical painting you don't use vibrant colors, but I think the style is more like kind of animation background. I grew up watching animations like Lion King or Aladdin, Little Mermaid, most Disney movies, Tarzan. More than the stories, I liked the coloring and painting of those animation. I don't know what was my favorite aspect of those animation, whether it was the story or the background or the sceneries or the characters or the movements. I just loved it all. Maybe more than the story, I liked the art side of the animation. That's why I like to bring back those old memories and those art style in my painting, because let's face it, in current animation you don't see much of those styling anymore, at least not in 2D animation, whatever 2D animation left in the industry. Okay, so created another layer on top of all the layers, taking a vibrant red color, not too bright but vibrant enough, and created a oval shape. Now filling up this oval shape with the color using the bucket tool. Now taking brush and painting a deeper color on one side, but I'm painting it on a new layer because later on I'm going to blur it, so I needed the shades on a new layer. Now a bit of orangish color and a bit of dampen lighter orange color. Now I'm blurring this entire layer around 100 first, now additional 30. Now deselect the option and merge both the layer, pushing it aside a little bit. Now again taking another layer and painting the top part of the fruit, vegetable, whatever you call it. I'm just painting some random fruits or whatever to make it a bit vibrant, make the image a bit vibrant. Now I need to know fruit anatomy. Is there any such word like fruit anatomy? I don't know. Anyways, same old coloring and then smudging and then creating something beautiful. Voila! Not my thing. Anyways, just adjusting this part, and again I'm going to merge it down with the fruit thingy. Yes. Now I'm just resizing a bit with the scale tool because it looks really big, and let's just flip it. Yes. Now I'm going to put it on one side, left side probably. It needs a bit of rotation. Need a little bit of adjustment here now. Playing with the size and see which size and position looks best. Just drag it below the layer, below the first layer, and just again change the size a bit. Yes, I think it would look better this way, like some part of the fruit, vegetables, whatever is seen through the leaves. Okay, now I'm going to give a little bit shine on the fruit. Obviously the sun rays, little smudgy on the side. Yeah, that's enough shine you got over there, fruity. Anyways, so I'm going to duplicate this fruit or vegetable, the red thing, and I'll just move the copy on this side, and I think this fruit red thingy will be below the third layer so that it can have a layered effect, like not all the fruits are in same layer, or vegetables, whatever you call it. Adding a bit shine. Now here's the layer position. Now I'm merging the fruits with their associated layer. So the first fruit will be merged with the topmost layer, and the second fruit will be merged with second layer. Simple. Now I took a new layer on top of all the other layers and start coloring black on sides of leaves like that, changing its mode to overlay. This will give an impression that not only light rays are falling on the leaves, but also shadows from other leaves falling on them, which will create a bit of contrast here, and also giving the idea that there are other leaves which is outside of our view, but we can understand they are there by seeing the shadows of those leaves falling on the topmost layers leaves. Also, it is actually creating depth in the image, like when the leaves shadow falling on the fruit, vegetables, whatever, so it gives you a sense of distance. Also, it looks nice, to be honest. Now just lightly smudging the border of these shadows because we don't want it to be extremely sharp. Now I'm just reducing the opacity a little bit. Now decrease the opacity around 80% and merge it with the topmost layer. Now I have done same for the second layer as well. Added some shades, or rather shadows. Now I've added a layer between second and third layer, and with a big soft brush with opacity little lesser than 100%, I just added a circular black color to the layer like a vignette. Now I'm just going to blur the layer around 500% and maybe use a soft brush with the eraser tool to erase the middle part a bit more. Reduce the opacity around 80% to give it a more subtle look. Now I just merged this layer with the third layer. Now I made another layer between the topmost layer and the second layer and took a whitish yellowish color, mostly towards white, and started painting the spider web just like that. The brush is again a 50% hard brush and the size is extremely small. Here I took like 10 pixels and just draw the spider web like this. I just didn't take any reference, but I'll suggest if you want to practice, you just use some reference to begin with, then you can paint however you want it. So my weird looking spider web is done. Now just adding a little bit extra white colors here and there to give it a natural, more flawed look, a bit of shine maybe. Just merge the colors with the original web so that they mix well, like they're part of the web. Now I took the black color with around 80% opacity and drawing a random shape. Is for the water droplets on the web, so it doesn't matter what kind of shape you draw, mostly a bit roundish shape would be nice. Since I'm painting it with the idea that I'm going to make an animation out of it, probably, maybe, I'm using black color to border the water droplets. If you want to make it more realistic, you can use less black and more of yellowish and white color to border it, but try to make it look semi-transparent or transparent enough to see what it is on, but yet a bit of shine so that it look a bit like water droplets which shines under sun rays. So I'm going to draw some water droplets on the leaves as well. So I took a separate layer on top of all the layers and just painting some random droplets and shading it with a bit of white so that it doesn't look extremely dark. And also when I'll smudge this white color with black, it will give the good effect. So as you can see, it's not fully covered with color, it's not opaque, yet it's not fully transparent. It has some shine on the edge and shade as the black color, giving the impression that the droplets have a little bit of shadow below it. So same way I drew all the droplets. Now I've added a layer on top of the front leaves layer below the droplets layer and filled it with orange color. Change the mode of the layer to overlay and decrease the opacity around 40%, and then merged it with the front leaves layer, the top leaves layer. So this warm effect will only be on the top layer and not on all the layers. Now if you want to stop here, you can stop, but if you don't want to make an animation out of it, if you want to create a final image from here, you have to change the focus a bit to give it a little bit more attraction, more focus on the subject. For example, here I want to focus on the spider web. So what I'll do is I'll blur the layers below the spider web. So first I blur the bottommost layer around 80 pixels, and then I'm blurring the second bottommost layer, which is with the dark vignette effect. I'm blurring it with around 40% or 40 pixels of Gaussian blur, and then I blur the layer immediately below the spider web with 30 pixels of Gaussian blur value. Now you can blur the topmost layer if you want to create absolute focus on the spider web, but I'm going to keep it like this. I want to keep the topmost layer in the focus as well as the spider web. So this will be my final image if I want to stop my painting here. Now next I'll try to animate this image. I don't know if I'll be successful or not. If I will, I'll be making a video about it. If not, then just understand that I'm not successful. So if you want to connect with me, you can with various social media options. And keep on watching. Like, comment, share and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you next time. Bye.